So is your counselor great or average? Is your counselor great or average? Do you know how to tell the difference? Hey, David Essel here, David Essel's Daily Video Boost. This is a free subscription service. We have thousands upon thousands of people, we really do, from all over the world. It's so great to get the feedback. We appreciate you giving us emails from time to time. It's really nice. But anyway, we're going to talk today about how to pick a counselor or a life coach. It's all the same thing in my book. A therapist, they all have to have certain traits. And is your counselor, your therapist, your coach, are they great or are they just average? I'm going to give you a differentiation of how to tell right now. Remember, take notes. Go and join the David Essel's Daily Video Boost at talkdavid.com and then take notes. Do not trust your brain. Take notes. So I've got so many stories I could tell about this, but most recently, 7 days ago, a couple came in and they had called up and said they wanted to start working with me. And I said, fantastic. They lived way out of town, but they happened to be visiting my city. So we did an initial call via Skype just to say hi to each other. And then they came in the office. And when the wife was talking, I just said to her, like I ask everyone else, how did you get me here? How'd you find me? And she said, well, we got really sick and tired of our last therapist. And I said, why is that? And she said, because all she did was talk about herself. So when we would bring up an issue at home, she would look at us and say, oh, I remember when my husband and I went through that, and this is what we did. And then she'd be talking about something with her children, and then the therapist would say, yeah, I remember when my kids were 10, this is what I did. And let me tell you a story about what happened when we went on vacation with that. In other words, this couple was really frustrated because the therapist was constantly interjecting their own stories. And it wasn't like, oh my God, that's very difficult. You know, I've gone through a divorce. I know how hard it can be. It was, oh, I know that's very difficult. I've been through a divorce. I know how hard it can be. And let me tell you about my divorce. If your counselor, if your coach, if your therapist goes into story after story on a regular basis about their life, leave them. They are below average. They are below average. This has not just happened last week. This happens all the time. We constantly get people in that are saying, well, the last counselor, minister, life coach I had would only discuss them, would always look for an opportunity to inject how they overcame what challenge. It gets boring really quick. Let me tell you that. So number one, if your counselor, your therapist, your coach constantly goes into stories to try to bond with you, it's ridiculous. It's called an ego out of control. Okay. So you need to find someone new. That's number one. Number two, if your counselor or therapist does not give you assignments, homework in between your sessions, get rid of them. If you love them, you can ask them to start giving you assignments. But if they don't, get rid of them. You cannot change in a 1 hour session or a 50-minute session or a 30-minute session every week. That's not enough. You barely get to the surface or underneath the surface of issues in that period of time. You've got to have assignments. It's going to be journaling. It's going to be reading. There could be meditation assignments. It could come from, but there's got to be assignments. If your therapist, counselor, coach doesn't do it, then get a new one. You know, there was a number of years ago, there was a therapist from New York City when I was on XM satellite radio. I was hosting a show then. And she kept contacting my producer saying, I want to be on David's show. And she would pitch us topics and none of them were any interest. And so then finally she sent my producer a topic and it said, I want to be on his show to talk about the downside of psychotherapy. I said, okay, now you're on. I want to hear what you have to say. So she came on the show and I said to her, hey, tell me why you kept pushing to be on our show. I mean, we've got 100 requests from you. And she said, David, because I am a counselor and I do work just like you do. I give out assignments. I give out writing assignments, journaling, meditation, reading. She goes, I've listened to several of your podcasts and your radio shows. And I see that you say that there's not one session someone should leave without homework. I said, absolutely. And she said, I agree. And this is how I became a counselor. I live in New York City. For 15 years, I worked with a therapist. At the end of 15 years, I was no further ahead. And I couldn't figure out why. And then it struck me. In 15 years, she never once asked me to write anything down at all. She goes, so David, I went back to school to become a therapist, to become a counselor, just like you, so I could do it right and save people 15 years. And I loved her story so much. I said, babe, come back on anytime. And I mean that. I think the longest we've ever worked with a client was 2.5 or 3 years. And that's because there was one huge tragedy after another we had to overcome. On average, most of our clients are done within a year, but There are some clients, if we continue to change goals, I might work with them for 3 or 4 or 5 years, honestly, because we keep changing goals. We start off losing weight, we accomplish that. We go into sobriety, we accomplish that. Helped her get pregnant. This is a woman I'm thinking about. I didn't help her, her husband did, but I got her set up in a great mindset to help conception. We've helped people then, and that same person, we help then expand and open a brand new business. So we'll work with people for long periods of time if we keep accomplishing new goals. But as the therapist said on my show, she was going back to the same therapist in New York for 15 years, never saw a change. Now, she admitted part of that is her fault. She should have seen that going in and talking. See, you always feel better when you go in and vent, right? So you keep going back to your counselor, your therapist, your coach, you keep venting, but nothing changes. We got to radically change this, man. That's why I'm doing all of this work. If you need help, if you need a new counselor, coach, therapist, we work with people from all over the world. You will not hear me go on for 20 minutes in a row on my stories unless you ask me to and you're adamant and you tell me you won't leave the room or the Skype call unless I tell you a story. Besides that, it's not about me. It's about you. And I want you to accomplish all your goals. Our work is 100% money back guaranteed. Go to talkdavid.com right now. Pick a program you want, either 8 weeks or 10 weeks. Mention in an email to the website that you watched our videos, and we'll take $200 off, okay? Let's rock together. Have a great day.